Good evening, good afternoon, Inspire and Empower Society. Today's topic is going to be how to live authentically and not to shrink for others. Excuse me if my energy is a little down, I'm a little tired, but that's neither here nor there. I am here to inspire and empower. For those of you who may not know me, which many of you do, my name is Quajera, and I am your host of Inspire and Empower Society. And my goal is to do just that, is to inspire and empower each individual to reach your full potential. So today's topic, we're going to stay the course. I'm going to try to breeze through it as swiftly and efficiently as possible, not to make it a long video. I want to touch over two main topics to kind of tie in why I believe that we shrink for others, not only professionally, but those in our inner circle and in our community. I first want to say, this is a little off topic, but I first want to give a shout out to my husband. I just want to thank him because he is the most patient person that I know. He is my rock. He is the reason why I'm sitting here today. He helps motivate me. He helps keep me grounded. And he is just so patient. So if you guys want to learn about patience, that's your guy. So shout out to him. Okay, moving forward. The topic is how to live authentically and to stop shrinking for others. So by the end of this talk, I want all of us, including myself, to be able to stand tall, firm, and solid in the face of oppression and not to shrink for others, okay? So most people would say, I am authentic. I'm an authentic person, but the authenticity that I'm talking about is on a more deeper, profound level. It's not just what you think of being authentic is. This is going to tie in back into the 1900s. So I'm going to take you back, way back, to help you understand why we shrink for others, both professionally and for those in our inner circle and communities and our loved ones. Okay. So the first point that I'm going to drive in is the education system. And one might ask, what does the education system have to do with shrinking for others? It has a lot to do with shrinking for others. This tied back in, like I said, into the early 1900s, and that's when the U.S. educational system was adopted. For those of you who don't know, it was adopted by John D. Rockefeller. Yes, the Rockefeller family, the Rockefeller, father of the Rockefeller family. He developed and helped make a lot of decisions on how the U.S. educational system is ran today. The reason being is it was to help build his own empire, the industrial empire. So if you guys ever notice how everything around us evolved, right? Cars evolved, houses evolved, computers evolved, technology, all that stuff evolved. But the educational system is the only thing that has not evolved. The way it was designed from the beginning in the 1900s is the way it is still ran today. Meaning, there's bells, which, for the kids to go to different classes. There's the roles, how everything is set in roles. And then there is the repetition of learning. All that was put in place for a reason. When John D. Rockefeller and his constituents put the educational system in place, the reason being was he was trying to create, like I said, an industry of people to work in the factories. That's why it's ran with bells, roles, and repetition, just like a factory. And his quote, not mine, he wanted to create a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers. Again, his quote, not mine. Google it. John D. Rockefeller. Do your own, research on it. I was going to give a whole history lesson on him, but I said, no, that's too much. I'll let you guys, put out some facts and let you guys do your own research. So John D. Rockefeller is responsible of the way the school system is ran today in 2025. Now, granted, some things progressed where they are doing more business classes in school and more like, tech stuff or medical stuff, so you can leave the school system with having some kind of education. But again, it's putting you in the workforce. He never wanted to create a nation of thinkers and independent thinkers. He wanted to create a docile environment, and that has a lot to do with why we shrink. Now hold on to that thought. So again, how do you live to be your authentic self? So the question is, who are you and what do you believe? And you say, again, I'm authentic. I know who I am. I know what I believe. Do you really? Do you really know the history of the education system and how the systemic racism and all of that stuff developed? Because all of that ties into where we are today. Okay. Now I'm gonna, like I said, I have to take you back a little bit in history to paint the picture that I want. I'm not gonna dig deep into it or expound on it the way I wanted to. I'm just gonna throw out some facts and then you guys do your research yourself. Okay, I'm gonna put this book up here. I recommend everybody get this book. It's called Weapons of Mass Instruction. Okay, and it has to do with the education system. So this book right here will tell you all about what I kind of briefly touched on about John D. Rockefeller and his constituents and how they put the educational system in place to keep people working, not independent thinkers, not leaders, not innovators. Now, granted, some people do break through the box and they become leaders, innovators, and, you know, people of greatness, but many of us get stuck in that box and just become like he wanted to create, just a nation of workers, not thinkers. Okay. Again, the book is Weapons of Mass Instruction. It's by John Taylor Gatto. Okay. And he was a New York teacher. He got Teacher of the Year some years ago, but very good book. Okay. And there's another book too that I'll put later in like my chats for you to read. It's called Dumbing Us Down. Again, dealing with the educational system. Okay. So the question I said, okay, you say, I said, I'm sorry, I'm getting a text message. How do you live to be authentically yourself? First, you have to know who you are. Most people say, I do know who I am. Tie back to, okay, do you really know who you are? And once you know who you are, okay, are you living to your fullest potential? Okay, so now that we understand what the educational system, or briefly understand what the educational system was, why it was created, and what its main purpose was, I'm going to fast forward a little bit and tie into my second point. My second point is I'm talking about going back into, so this was the 1900s that the school system, I want you to keep that in mind, the 1900s when the school system was created. Now think about the 1900s, what was going on in the 1900s, right? For our people in particular, or people in general. Fast forward a little bit, okay, 1865 is when chattel slavery ended. Got 1900s is when the school system was in place. Now think about that time, think about what's going on, okay? So now all of that's happening. Fast forward up into, like I said, 1865, chattel slavery ended. Now you move forward into the Jim Crow area where there's legal segregation for our people, right? So that's like in the 1960s, okay? So now you have all of that going on with our great-great-grandparents, right? Now you fast forward. Our great-grandparents teaches our grandmother, their mother, and so on, right? So they're, with all that knowledge they have and the things that they're going through, they're passing it on. And that's why they always say break generational curses, right? Because it's passed on from generation to generation. Now, if they were never aware and understood what the education system was meant for, and, you know, how slavery affected them, they will not know how to correct it. And that's going to bring me to another book I want you guys to get. I'm going to talk about this. This is why I'm showing this book. The book is called it's called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, and it's by Dr. Joy DeGruy. Okay, she talks about, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but she talks about what I just was talking about. Chattel slavery ended, then you got the segregation, then you got the Jim Crow segregation, then you have fast forwarded to 2025, we're still dealing with systematic racism where we are oppressed economically, education, all these different barriers that we have that's against us, right? And you're like, why are you talking about this? What does it have to do with living authentically and not shrinking for others? I'm tying in 2 points to get to that point. So we have the educational system that was never meant for anybody in particular, because it wasn't just about race, for anybody in general to be anything of greatness. It was meant to create workers. So here we're dumbing ourselves down, right? We're not being able to live our authentic, truth, God-given talent to self, because the school system doesn't allow that. Just think about it. Any kid that challenged the status quo in a school system, they're labeled a problem child. If I start questioning history or science or anything, the teachers, like, they dumb you down. They don't want to hear it. every so often you might get good teachers that do want to, challenge the students and get them to critically think and use their mind. But most teachers don't. They just want to get through the lesson and get through the day, because when you have to stop and deal with students who challenge the status quo to or critically think to use their brain, they're labeled a problem child and like delaying a process. So we were not put in school to challenge things and to grow and to, have these discussions that's outside of the curriculum that's supposed to be taught, right? Because it's those bells, right? And whistles, because they only have a certain amount of time to teach their lesson. So they can't stop the whole class and derail to talk about somebody who wants to be innovative, creative, and challenge the status quo. Okay, so that I don't get off topic. You have the school system that was never designed to help you reach your full potential. Then we have, for my people, African-American people, and others too, the systemic oppression, right? Who, anytime you are trying to grow and expand, it's like, no, they want to dumb you down. They don't want to see your full potential. They don't want to see, talented people. Now, granted, some people do make it outside the box. Some people do well for themselves. Some people are entrepreneurs. Some people do own things. But look around. A lot of people that own these big, construction areas, the banks, hotels, they're not many people of color, right? They don't look like us. And there's a reason behind it, because of the post-traumatic slave syndrome. As I was stated, your parents raised them and their parents raised them, and it gets passed down, because in the 1900s, or even in the early 1900s, mid 1900s, was a lot of oppression going on. So they weren't able to grow as much. They was constantly held back, constantly pushed back, constantly told to shrink themselves, right? In the face of oppression. That's why I said by the end of this, I hope people do their research and some of the facts that I tie in, that they are able to stand bold, tall, and firm in the face of oppression, right? Because when you know where you came from, it helps you to know where you're going. You can't become if you don't know where you came from and understand how the system was put in place to hold you back. Okay. And a lot of people say, oh, that doesn't exist. We're not held back. I'm living proof. You are held back. You can do whatever in your power, to come. Like, our race is different. Okay. We don't just have a straight race. It's difficult to get there, but life is what you make it. We can do it. I'm not saying that we can't, because there's people who are doing it. There's people who are billionaires and millionaires that look like us. But again, it's not advertised. So again, the school system, going back to the school system, when you're in school at a young age, you're not seeing greatness that look like you. We're taught and told that everything that doesn't look like us are the innovators, the creators. So one has to question, what does that do to the psychology of a young child that's growing and developing if they never see or inspired by anything that, or anyone that looks like them, to tell them that you are great and you can become? You don't reach your full potential because you feel like, you are just pumped out of school. And this is what even parents, not all parents, some parents tell their kid, go to school, get an education, go to work. Because again, that was what was in place. That was a plan to create a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers. But as I've learned, I'm trying to break every generational curse that was set upon me, financially, spiritually, mentally. I'm breaking those barriers, and I'm doing it brick by brick, as I speak about all the time. Do things brick by brick, little by little. I am breaking those barriers. I'm teaching my kids at a young age right now to be entrepreneurs. My son just had an event where he experienced to be an entrepreneur, because if I don't tell him about his greatness, I can't depend on that school system to tell him that he's great. The school system is going to keep him in that box with all the other kids, just to move them through the factory line, just to get them out, to pump them to be workers. They're not pumping them to be leaders. They're not uplifting them, telling them how great they are. So it's up to the parents to do that. Don't leave it to the school system. If you're going to put your child in public school, you be their first teacher. Okay. The other point that I wanted to tie in was, like I was talking about, post-traumatic slave syndrome. I recommend you guys get Joy Leary book, because she will help you understand the condition of our culture. She is very I think I spoke about her before. She is a very profound, intellectual, phenomenal woman. Okay, she gets very deep and take you back and fast forward today to why our people are the way we are, and why we are not growing to our fullest potential. And like I said, this doesn't fit everybody. I'm speaking of the majority of our people, because not everybody is in this box. We have a lot of successful people from different cultures, different backgrounds, that was affected by the post-traumatic slave syndrome. But I'm just speaking in general for people who are stuck, who feel like they can't break the barriers, who feel like, they're capped off, and these are the reasons. Okay. Just so I'm staying on topic, I'm just touching over my notes. Again, both of the topics that I talked about, the school system and post-traumatic slave syndrome, both ties into the topic that's at hand. How do we live to be authentically ourselves and not shrink for others? So based off what I just said, I know it seemed probably all over the place because it's more profound and deeper than what I'm saying. And I don't want to take you all the way back into history and, make this a long, extensive video. So I just wanted to throw some facts out there, and then you do the research yourself. Having those two things against us, the school system, who was never designed for us to be innovators, leaders, or anything great, just to be a nation of workers, not thinkers. Again, John D. Rockefeller words, not mine. You have that in place. Then you have post-traumatic slave syndrome stuff that we're dealing with in place, where, like I said, our great-great-great-grandparents raised that mother who raised that mother who then raised me. If they never got therapy, if they never got the help they needed, if they never sought counsel or broke out that barrier to know that they can be great, this is what they call generational curses to get passed down to generation to generation. And like I said, I'm trying to break those generational curses on all barriers, so I do not shrink for others, because I fall victim to shrinking for others as well. And when I talk about shrinking for others, I'm talking about it on a larger scale, because there's two discussions that can be had when you talk about shrinking for others. One could be on a professional level, and then, like I said, one could be on that inner circle in your community, your loved one level, meaning, you're not standing tall with your shoulders back and speaking your truth, because we're oftentimes told to shrink, to think that we are not worthy, to not know our worth, So that's why I said, hold on to that question. Who are you? And to the end of this talk, who are you and what do you believe in? Truly think about that. Look at your history, look at your family history and who raised you and what they taught you were when you were a young child. Where did you first learn that you were great? Whoever told you that you were great and that you can reach your full potential? Did you hear this growing up? Did anyone, mold you into being an entrepreneur? To tell you that you can own whatever is in this world. Like I said, when we look around at all the things that are our own, hotels, banks, and anything on a larger scale, big construction sites with multi-unit housing on it, it's not many people that look like us that own it. Land, and there's a reason behind it. And I want us to understand it and break that barrier. And like I said, I'm pushing hard to break my generational curses. I'm not just talking about it. I walk the walk like I talk the talk. Okay. And anybody that know me know that I go hard to break these barriers on all levels. Okay. Even what I'm doing now, it's not only helping you guys, it's helping myself too, because I'm holding myself accountable to constantly learn, to constantly live when I'm talking. Okay. So with those two things in place, like I said, that's what causes shrinkage. That's what causes us not to live authentically ourselves. And I'm not saying like being a fake person. I mean, authentically ourselves, because we are great. If you think about, the things that we are capable of and the things that we can do, like, we can do anything we put our mind to it. It's all ties back into, like I talk about, training your mind, just like you train to go to the gym. When you train them thoughts and you train your mind to be great, it's nothing that you can't achieve. There's no ceiling, there's no cap. So you can be great. If no one told you that, I'm telling you that you can be great. Okay. And how do you become great? One, like I said, is discovering who you really are, discovering your strengths, your abilities, and your purpose. Once you understand the systems, the educational systems, and then the systemic racism that goes on, you would be able to maneuver through those systems and create redefine and reshape who you are, and then you would be able to live with conviction, live to be authentic with your full potential, not back down, shrink when someone that you think is or more of a higher intellectual level or financial level than you won't shrink down in the face of oppression. Okay, no matter how that looks, whether it's from a loved one, from a family member, a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, a teacher. You know who you are, and you know what you believe in, and you'll be able to stand firm on that. Okay, so you first have to know who you are. You can begin to change the narrative of what was set upon you, what was meant for you to be. You can change that narrative at any given moment by tying back into changing those thoughts, changing that mindset. Because when you do that, sky's the limit. And I'm living proof, okay? I push myself every day to the limit, okay? Every single day. Like I said, I'm not exempt from shrinkage. I'm learning how now to not shrink in the eyes of oppression. I'm learning my worth. I'm learning who I am, and I'm standing firm with it. I'm redefining and reshaping who I am with conviction this time, with purpose. I'm knowing what my purpose is, and I'm living in my purpose. Now, granted, every day is not a strong day, but I do live in my purpose. Okay. Oh, I was just told that I was frozen. Hopefully it's still not frozen. I feel like it probably has like some glitches here and there. But yeah, that was the talk of the topic. Like I said, I'm not going to spend a whole hour on it. I just wanted to do like a quick 30-minute video to discuss and to give you guys some education on what the system was designed for you to become and how you can break that cycle, how you can redefine and reshape who you are or who you think you are. And like I said, many people probably say, oh, I know who I am. I'm comfortable who I am. But it's like, really? Did you really do your research? Because if you haven't listened to Joy Leary or read her book, I'm pretty sure you don't understand, because this lady is phenomenal. I can't big her up enough. She really, really, really helps you understand our culture today and the way things are. And she's very bold and firm about her speakings. So again, I hope this inspired you to want to learn more about the systems and how it was shaped to, like I said, make you become just a worker, because many of us are stuck in a 9-to-5 and don't know how to get out of it, right? And again, I'm not exempt. I work a 9-to-5. In fact, I work 2 9-to-5s, but I am trying to get out of that system. I'm also an entrepreneur. Like if you watch any of my other videos, you would know that I had a past business. It wasn't successful, but I opened, another business, and now I'm working on, it is in place, but I'm working on growing it. It's my 501c3, which is a nonprofit company. And I have other small LLCs on the side, and I'm helping my son, my young 5-year-old, develop a business mindset. So I'm trying to break through those barriers. And God granted, you have to work a 9-to-5 to build up income if you don't have, ran into, some financial, economic, from passed down from generation or whatever, what have you. But I'm working diligently to break those barriers one by one, and I will, because I believe in myself and I know my worth and I know my capabilities. Okay, so I'm very confident, not cocky, but confident. And again, this is just a video to inspire you guys, to kind of put some fire under you, like I always do every day. Put some fire under you to hold you accountable to not limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. Don't be afraid. Take risks. Take calculated risks, not risky risks, but calculated risks. Anything in business is a risk, but it's a calculated, worthwhile risk. So I encourage you, take risks. Think outside the box. Don't let anyone close you in. If you have an idea, plant that seed and water it. Because if you don't, it won't go anywhere. And remember, it starts in your mind. That's the seed. Plant it and grow it. Just like my beautiful plants in the back. Develop it. Stand firm on it. And granted, it's not going to be a straight run. Success isn't easy. It's a lot of hills and mountains, little setbacks, but we talk about resilience a lot. If you've been following a lot of my daily posts, it's all on resilience, on how to bounce back from setbacks, how to reprogram your brain to think of greatness, how to attract what you want, because your thoughts become reality. All of this stuff matters, okay? So again, it all ties back into living authentically and not shrinking for others. Change your mindset, know who you are, do some research, do some learning. Don't be afraid to pick up a book. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. All of these things help you to reach your full potential. And as I'm working on it for myself, trying to reach my full potential, because I'm not there yet. I'm not where I want to be. I'm on the right track. I'm on my journey. I'm on my path. I encourage all of you to stay on your journey, stay on your path, so you can live authentically and be yourself, your true God-given self, which is talented. Okay? Because we were not born to shrink for others' comfort. You were born to break cycles. Okay? So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind, if you continue to be around people who operate on a low frequency, that frequency, you're going to get pulled into it. You know, you ever heard of radio frequency and waves? All of that stuff is real. Like, I don't like to talk too much into it because I do believe in a higher power, but I also know I'm a realist, right? Like I said, we're electrical beings. If you can shock something, you have a frequency in you, you know. So I do believe in that. You attract, you can repel, just like you attract. So always constantly stay in that positive vibration and keep those things around you in your environment positive, because if not, they can pull you back. And I bear witness to that because I experienced that not too long ago. When you are dealing with people in a low frequency, they can change your whole mood. They will bring you into their frequency. So you have to learn how to repel that. You have to have the tools and the resources to repel that. And the things that I post every day, those are tools and skills that I use to help my mental to repel that. Because if not, I would stay in that low frequency that, you know, the people that are around me. And I refuse to let that happen. I refuse it because I know who I am. I know where I'm going. I know my worth. And I refuse to let anything hold me back. So I'm going to keep striving and keep climbing that mountain till I get to the top. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to close out. I hope everything made sense. Like I said, this is not a long video, but what I was basically trying to tie in was those two main points: the educational system and post-traumatic slave syndrome. Now, you guys do your research on the two, and because there's books out there. John Taylor Gatto has a book called Dumbing Us Down that discusses the educational system. And then this other book that I told you about, Weapons of Mass Instruction. And then this is the other one, if you guys didn't get it, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Joy DeGruy. Those two books will help you understand a lot about yourself, a lot about the people around you. And it would also build up some confidence for you to know, okay, wow, I am stuck in a box. What can I do to get out of there? What you can do is keep following Inspire and Empower Society, because I'm going to put those jewels out there every day that make you think, to make you want to be better, to make you want to do better. And again, I'm only one text away, one phone call away, one chat away. If you need any information, will do my due diligence to get it to you, or I will direct you to someone who knows the information. And that goes to anything, whether it's about business, whether it's about school, housing, you think of it, because I'm on a lot of different things, you know. And like I said, if I don't know it, I will find a person who does and direct you to that person. But just continue to stay inspired, continue to stay empowered, know your worth, know who you are, and think about that. Let that sink in. Who am I? Who am I really? You know, where am I going in life? What is my purpose? And am I continuing to shrink down for others in the eyes of oppression because I feel less than? Don't feel less than. You are a warrior. You are resilient. You come from people of resilience. So just know your worth. And I encourage that. Okay. I'm going to leave you guys on that note. You guys have a wonderful prosperous rest of your evening, rest of your day, rest of your week. I will chat with you soon. Stay tuned for my next live. I will post it in my Overcoming Obstacles tab. The next topic is going to be really nice. I think it will tie in a lot of things that we are dealing with. It will piggyback off of the shrinkage. It's on unity and why are we afraid to unify. So stay tuned. Again, thank you for all my supporters that are continuing to support, continue to look at my live videos, to continue to listen to or participate in my quotes. Thank you so much. And thank you for those who will come in the future, because these videos are taped, so for others to see later on down the line. So thank you. I appreciate it. You inspire me just as much as I am inspiring you guys. Until then, you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you.